The battle on the scarlet plains of Varan 9 left the air thick with smoke and the sharp scent of ion discharge. Human forces had advanced farther than any command officer expected, and now the ground was littered with shattered plates of armor, cracked soil, and the remains of broken machines. In the middle of that desolate scene stood one figure who did not fit into the rhythm of destruction. His name was Leon, a soldier known for discipline, calm thought under fire, and a habit of refusing to leave anyone behind, human or otherwise. He stepped over a burned ridge of earth as the last echo of gunfire faded. The squad around him moved forward in formation, but he noticed something the others did not. A faint sound drifted from a cluster of fallen structures on the right. It was soft, thin, and frightened. Leon halted and raised his hand for silence. The others stopped. With a sharp breath he moved toward the sound, while the squad leader barked for him to stay in formation. He ignored it and advanced toward the broken stones and the scorched remains of the alien shelter. Beneath, a cracked beam lay a small form. It trembled, curling in on itself. The child resembled the scaled warriors they had been fighting, but it was smaller, softer, with wide silver eyes and faint luminescent lines trailing across its skin. The moment Leon saw it, he recognized that this was not a combatant. This was a young one, terrified and alone. The squad leader shouted again, ordering him to return. The child squeaked and pressed itself tighter against the rubble as heavy boots approached. Leon's instincts rose like a shield. Instead of backing away, he knelt and held his hands out to show he carried no threat. The child watched him with trembling breaths. When Leon lifted the heavy beam pinning the creature's leg, it cried out in pain. He kept his voice calm and steady, promising in soft tones that it would be safe. A shadow passed overhead as the enemy forces regrouped beyond the ridge. If they saw the human soldier holding one of their young, the battle would explode again with ferocity. Leon acted quickly. He lifted the small being into his arms and shielded it with his body. He told his squad to fall back to the edge of the valley while he remained behind. They protested, but he did not move. When they realized his intent, they retreated, leaving him alone at the broken ruin. Moments later, the air rippled. From the edge of the ridge emerged the alien warriors of Varan 9. Their armor was shaped with jagged crests and hues of deep blue. At their center stood their commander, a towering figure named Mara by her own people. Her presence carried authority like a blade of tempered steel. Her crest rose with fury the instant her gaze locked onto the scene. She expected to find a human soldier using the child as leverage. She expected cruelty or violence. What she saw instead was Leon crouched over the young one, arms wrapped around it to block any incoming fire. He did not shout. He did not aim his weapon. He simply shielded the small being as though it were his own. The alien warriors aimed their rifles, ready to strike. Mara lifted her hand to halt them. She studied the human carefully. His posture spoke more than any words. He held the child as though he feared the warriors might fire and hit it by mistake. He placed himself between danger and a youngling who was not even his species. Mara stepped forward. Her steps were measured yet silent. When she stopped an arm's length away, she spoke with cold authority. Her language carried harsh tones and deep notes, but Leon could sense its meaning. He slowly lowered himself to the ground and allowed the child to cling to his chest. He kept his hands open where she could see them. She approached and gently lifted her young one from his arms. The child whimpered and hid its face behind her armor. Leon expected punishment. He had crossed battle lines alone while the war still raged. He prepared himself for whatever her judgment would be. Instead, she turned to her warriors and ordered them to lower their weapons. A wave of shock passed over the gathered soldiers. To spare an enemy in the middle of a conflict was unheard of among their ranks. Yet the order stood firm. She looked back at Leon. Her gaze was steady, measuring, and unyielding. He could sense she wanted an explanation. He gave one through slow gestures and the shared meaning of protective action. He showed that he had heard the child cry and had acted without hesitation. Something shifted in her expression. Her crest lowered, her breathing slowed. She recognized the intent behind his actions. She signaled him to follow. Leon hesitated. He knew following an enemy commander deep into her lines was reckless. Yet she had given him no reason to doubt her. She could have ended his life with a single command. Instead, she showed an unexpected mercy. He rose to his feet and walked with her, surrounded by alien soldiers who watched him with suspicion and awe. They traveled through a network of tunnels, carved beneath the ridge. Luminescent moss lined the walls, casting soft blue light. The air cooled as they descended. At the deepest chamber, they reached a medical hall where the young one was placed on a cushioned slab. He saw alien healers tending to the injured limb. The child reached out for him in fright before recognizing it was safe. Mara observed him closely as he watched the process. She moved with a predatory grace and a protective ferocity. Everything about her spoke of leadership born through trial. She dismissed the healers and stepped toward Leon. The child curled beside her leg. She spoke in her language again, slow and measured, allowing her tone to convey meaning. Leon understood she wanted to know why a human soldier would risk everything for an enemy young. He explained the only way he knew how. Through gestures, he showed that protecting the small and defenseless was a universal duty. Not a human duty. Not an alien duty. A duty of any being who valued life. A quiet stillness filled the hall. For years, Mara had believed humans were ruthless invaders driven by conquest. Her people had suffered under human expansion. Yet here stood a soldier who defied every belief. He placed himself in harm's way, not for victory, but for compassion. She studied him long enough that her warriors shifted uneasily. At last she gave a short command. The guard stepped away from the chamber, leaving her alone with Leon and the child. She approached him with slow, deliberate steps. Her gaze no longer held rage. It held something deeper, something he could not identify at first. She reached out and touched the place on his armor where the child had clung to him. Her fingers traced the mark gently. When she stepped back, her stance had changed. Her shoulders eased. Her crest lowered. She spoke again, and though he could not understand the words, he understood the meaning. She accepted what he had done. She honored it. In her culture, saving the young of an enemy was an act of the highest courage. It was also a binding action. A warrior who defended a young one from danger became part of the family's debt of protection. Mara was not only a commander. She was the mother of the child he had saved. By her people's ancient laws, she now owed him a debt that could not be repaid with simple thanks. She declared before witnesses that he would be under her protection for as long as he lived. Her warriors reacted with astonishment. Some looked uneasy, while others bowed their heads in acceptance. The law was absolute. If she claimed him, they could not challenge it. Leon did not understand her words, but understood the shift in the atmosphere. She approached again and placed her hand over his, a gesture of vow in her culture. She then guided him down another corridor that led to a chamber marked with symbols he did not know. The walls displayed murals of past leaders and defenders of younglings. By bringing him there, she was showing him the highest honor her people could give. She stood beside him in heavy silence. Then she touched her crest to his forearm. It was a symbolic gesture of adoption. She had taken him into her family, not as a prisoner, not as a hostage, as someone she would guard with her own life. The child crawled forward and pressed its small head against Leon's leg, signaling trust. He felt a weight shift inside his chest. Despite the war, despite the tension, he felt a bond forming. Time passed in the underground city. Leon learned their gestures and the rhythm of their language. He helped tend to the young as they healed. Mara visited often, sometimes with questions, other times simply to watch him interact with the children. Her gaze softened with each passing day. She carried herself with fierce pride, but around him her posture changed. She no longer saw him as human or enemy. She saw him as the one who had saved what she treasured most. When the conflict above ground began to shift, word reached Mara that human forces sought a truce. She prepared a delegation to meet them. Leon walked beside her, no longer restrained, no longer guarded as a threat. Her warriors bowed their heads to him when he passed. Some offered brief gestures of thanks. The child walked at his side, holding on to his hand with growing confidence. At the surface, the wind carried the scent of change. Human officers waited with uneasy suspicion when they saw Leon walking beside the alien commander. Weapons raised. Tension snapped through the air. Mara stepped forward and placed her arm across Leon's chest. A protective gesture. Her warriors raised their staffs, declaring the bond for all to see. The human officers froze as they realized the alien mother was claiming the human soldier as part of her household. She would defend him as fiercely as her own. Leon raised his hand and explained the situation in simple words. He told them he had found a child and defended it.